In this week's episode, I'm joined by my good friend, Charlene Wheeless, keynote speaker and leadership coach. This week, our conversation is about Congress's first openly Black lesbian, Walmart removing degree requirements, and more. Hey there, my name is Bernadette Smith. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I've found is that there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data. But there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for DEI stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these inclusive actions and policies within your own organization to help you build a more inclusive world. Let's get started. Charlene, Your Highness, will you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. That's an inside joke. Just so you all know, I don't really have royal. I don't have any royalty blood except just only in my own head. Hi, guys. I'm Charlene Wheeless. As Bernadette said, I am a keynote speaker. I'm an inspirational leadership speaker and a leadership coach. I'm also an author. You know, what author doesn't plug her book? You Are Enough. And just really excited to be here because I'll do anything for my friend Bernadette. So.
Oh, thank you. You are very precious to me as well. So thank you. And I love your book, by the way. I think your book is just so raw, honest. It is so candid. It is really a breathtaking book. And I think everyone, regardless of who they are, how they identify, any of that, I think everyone can learn and be inspired by your book. So thank you. And I treasure my autographed copy. So
of course for you. Of course.
So one of the themes in your book is authenticity. And I wrote about that this week in the 5 Things newsletter about how there was a time in my career when I was a wedding planner in which I really felt very fake because I was in it more to be an LGBTQ advocate, not so much because I loved pretty weddings. And so, but I did it for a long time. So there was a lot of time that I felt really inauthentic. In hindsight, I kind of know that I didn't let my personality shine. I definitely wasn't as playful. I was more stiff, more reserved. But, now I feel like a completely different person. And so you are an authenticity expert. Can you give advice for folks on how they can be more authentic and what the value is at work?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, for one thing, Bernadette, the person you were describing, I've never met that person, right? Who didn't let her personality shine. I've always known you as this vibrant person. But, the easiest thing about authenticity is really to just be yourself. And to, obviously we want to always pay attention to manners and things like that, so don't take it to the extreme. But, authenticity is so important because that's your unique gift. If every time you start to say something or do something that feels natural to you and you stop yourself and say, oh, well, what would they really want to hear? And that's what you say, you're really not being yourself. And I think you can only on this side, I think you can only see it a little bit, but I have a poster thing up there that says, let your light shine. And it's a Bible from a Bible verse. And I have it up there because for so long in corporate, I really felt like I was being told directly or indirectly to dim my light. And so what is authenticity? Authenticity is letting your light shine. And when you do that, you feel better about who you are and you lose that mask, that coat of armor, that hypervigilance that takes up so much energy just to get through the day.
It sounds amazing, but it also can be a little bit easier said than done, especially from folks from traditionally marginalized groups. So, when folks are concerned about how they'll be perceived or racism or something as direct as racism or homophobia, like how how do they let their like, how do you do that? How do you fight past all the potential fears?
Well, I think you have to decide what side you're going to be on, and there may be more than one. And what I mean by that is early on in my career, I decided that I was going to be a trailblazer, right? So I went places where I was tolerated, not celebrated, right? Not everybody has that kind of courage or needs to have that kind of courage. And to those people, I say, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. You can only, there are people who are meant to fight the system. And I happen to think that I'm one of them. And there are other people who maybe their gifts are different. And I think, and it took me a long time to learn this lesson, but if you have to put so much energy into just getting up and getting to where you work or where you go to school, make a choice to do something different somewhere else, right? Because, everybody always says it, but, life is too short, and it really is too short to be someone else.
That makes a lot of sense, and that sort of is one of your quotes, right? Make that choice, like,
Yes, it's choice,
it's
not chance, that
it
changes your life.
yes,
Absolutely.
I love that. Will you just give a 20-second explanation of what choice, not chance means?
Yeah. So I came up with this because I believe that throughout our lives, we have opportunities to make decisions at pivotal points. And in those times, we either make a choice or we leave it to chance. And when we make those choices, we are choosing to have the life, the career, the relationship, the workforce, whatever it is that we want. So it truly is choice, not chance,
Mm.
that changes everything. And I really try to encourage people choose before chance takes over.
I love it. Thank you. And
Mhm.
my conversations with you, I always find very inspiring. And one of the things that you said today that's inspired me is, well, in the chat now we see authenticity is letting your light shine. I decided just last week what my 2024 word of the year is, and it's
Mhm.
shine. So
Oh, that's great. That's
very
great.
aligned. Yes. All right. So let's move into this week's good vibes. The first story comes from Walmart, which is rewriting job descriptions for many corporate roles to remove degree requirements if the candidate has the necessary skills through prior experience or alternative learning. So, one of many companies starting to make this shift. And it's awesome because, especially folks from traditionally marginalized backgrounds, they're less likely to have degrees.
Mhm. Well, and you're less likely to be referred to college, right? And often you're told, "Oh, well, that's a stretch school. Maybe you should do something else." And so I really applaud Walmart for this, and I don't applaud them often, but I really applaud them for this because I tell you, I know people who have degrees who are dumb as a doorknob. And I know other people, I guess that was probably not the right saying to use, but it's not
This
literally. And then I know others. Someone who I just adore comes to mind who did not go to college, and he's brilliant. And think about, and not only that, there's a lot to be said for being scrappy and having to figure things out. And when you bring all of those different pieces and people together, just imagine what can be created. And having a degree doesn't just automatically make you qualified. I mean, how many of us graduated from college and then said, well, what am I qualified to do?
Yep.
Right. So I really applaud Walmart, and I hope other companies follow suit. I really do, because they're missing out on some great talent just because they didn't go to college. And a lot of times it's because they didn't have that opportunity.
Exactly, exactly. So this is definitely something hopefully we'll see more of. I love it, love it, love it. And especially in fields like cybersecurity, data analytics, you don't need degrees. You can get really great certificate programs. Google has a certificate program, and then they hire from that. So it's definitely
Mhm.
the way I think we'll start seeing more companies go.
Right.
The second story comes from Lincoln Park Zoo here in Chicago, which recently launched Memory Enrichment, a groundbreaking monthly program for those folks with dementia, creating a welcoming space for connection with wildlife and community building. So this combines education, multisensory experiences, low impact physical activity, and it mirrors common practices found in memory cafes. So this goes along with some of the zoo's other accessibility programs like sensory friendly hours, ASL, and more. I love this.
Wow, that's great. And are the participants, do they get any kind of interaction with animals?
I believe that they do with the guide, of course, that they have specific times that they run this program,
Mhm.
and they do get interaction with the animals, and I think that there are some, like, reflection activities where there's, like, facilitated discussion about, I don't know, prior experiences with the animals.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but
Right, right. Well, I think animals have huge healing power. I really do. Of course, as you know, I have 3 dogs to take care of my 3 personalities now. But one of the most spiritual, not religious, but spiritual experiences I ever had was when I went on safari in Africa with my family. And one morning, I'm standing out in the Masai Mara. I didn't pronounce that correctly, and I'm standing there and I'm seeing lions, I'm seeing gazelles, I'm seeing giraffes, and it's super peaceful. And I'm just holding a cup of coffee, realizing how incredibly insignificant we are in the whole world, that this whole ecosystem. And it was just such a moment of peace and calm. And so I'm a big believer in animals, and good on the zoo for taking on things like that, and making accessibility and working with memory, especially. I think that's just fantastic.
yeah, thank you, and thank you for sharing that memory. I could visualize it. Like,
Oh, good.
I could see you there. Yeah, it made me wanna, have that. I felt similarly at, like, the Grand Canyon,
Mhm.
but, that sounds particularly, special. All right. The third story comes from the US Senate. We have a new Congresswoman, Senator Laphonza Butler, who is the first openly Black lesbian to join Congress and the sole Black woman in the Senate. She is appointed to fill Dianne Feinstein's vacant seat, who we just lost, and becomes the third Black woman as a US Senator until a special election is held.
Mhm.
Whew, nice.
Wow, that is great. And one of the best things about that is that she is openly a lesbian. She's openly herself, right? She's not trying to hide it. And I think that's great, right? Everybody should be able to live their life out loud. And so, good on her. I'm really excited about it. And also let's not forget the intersectionality of it, right?
Mhm.
Not just she's a lesbian, she's female, she's Black. There's, this whole intersectionality. And, you know, she's being accepted, right?
Yes.
Not tolerated, accepted. And well, to the extent, I mean, we can't talk politics, but to the extent, you know what I mean? She's being,
Yeah.
I just think it's great, when any kind of change, when there's one, there can be two, when there's two, there can be 10, when there's 10, there can be 100, right? It's just starting that ripple.
And I bet you weren't seeing many people like that many women of color in power when you were a kid. Probably not, right? This stuff really matters.
It matters. I didn't see any people of color in positions of power anywhere really until I graduated from college with my undergraduate degree and moved to the Washington, D.C. area. It was really why I thought I could be somebody. I have no idea because I didn't have examples, right, to look up to.
So
Mhm.
imagine what's gonna happen now that we do.
I know, I know. I'm gonna take the world by storm.
Yeah,
Everyone is. This next generation is so awesome in what they do and what they believe and how they just redefine the American dream. I'm so excited about it.
me too, and that's why I always have hope.
Yes.
Always.
Hmm.
Okay, the fourth story comes from United Airlines, which will become the first airline to allow passengers with disabilities to filter flights based on wheelchair accessibility. So the travelers will be able to input their wheelchair's dimensions, and the website will prioritize flights with cargo holds large enough to accommodate the chair.
Hmm.
And comes after a complaint from a passenger whose wheelchair was damaged. And they're also refunding the price difference for passengers who must choose more expensive flights due to wheelchair size. This is a great comprehensive policy.
Well, I'm a little shocked that there was an upcharge for
I
getting
think
on
it
a
had to do with the
plane.
time, and it had to do with, like, the time. So if, like, they wanted to take a noon flight,
Mhm.
but the flight that had that space for the wheelchair was later, and they would refund the price difference.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. Well, I think that certainly is a great story. I hope, yeah, a great timing for United because one of their big competitors is having a lot of issues around diversity right
Yeah.
now. So, so good on them, and I hope that that will extend into the service that people receive at the airport who need to transfer to the airport's thinner wheelchairs. Because I know
Mhm.
sometimes that can be difficult for people. But good on United Airlines for thinking about accessibility and the challenges around it.
Yes, good on them. Finally, it's the first, so hopefully it won't be the last, and every time I share a story like this, it just makes me, um, grateful that these aren't even the things I have to think about. So,
Right.
awareness of my
Mhm.
own privilege.
Mhm. And we all have some privilege somewhere if we think long and hard enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. The fifth story this week comes from Minnesota, which has a number of hospitals taking steps to provide culturally appropriate hair and skincare products to patients, including those with textured hairs or those who wear hijabs.
Mhm.
This is to help improve the patient experience.
Right. Right. I think it's beautiful that they're doing this. I just hope they ask people beforehand.
Sure.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Because sometimes good intentions can go upside down on you. And I would hate to see that happen because I think the intent is there, the desire to make the impact is there. And I think that would just be beautiful. I would just say to people, just don't make assumptions.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think don't make assumptions. And I think it sort of goes along with the United story in that it's one thing to sort of set up the system and make sure that there's a process in place. It's another thing to make sure that the employees are trained, right,
Yes.
and have that cultural competency.
Mhm.
So I think that's going to be really important here, as you pointed out.
Right. And the cultural sensitivity, right?
Yeah.
We can all be a little more sensitive at all times, I think.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, Charlene, it has been an absolute delight having you here on Five Things this week. This week's call to action is to subscribe to the Fortune Race Ahead newsletter. We'll put that link in the show notes and in the chat. It's a great source of inspiration and DEI news every week. I love that newsletter. Charlene, how can folks get in touch with you?
Well, like all of us, I'm all over social media. My email address is charlene@charlenewheeless.com, and that's one L, so because we will get confused on that. And then, like I said, I'm on all social media. You can DM me, you can hit me up at any time. I'd love talking with people, and if like with all of us, we're all here to make an impact. So if I can help you in any way, to your listeners, reach out and don't forget to get a copy of the book.
Such a great book. So I should reread that book as I enter my year of shine. Thank
Right.
you. Thank you, Charlene. Always a pleasure. I adore you and hope you and everyone else has a great week.
Great. Thank you, Bernadette. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to 5 Things in 15 Minutes. I hope you found yourself inspired by at least one of this week's stories. If you did, would you mind sharing it with a colleague and leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform? And if you don't already get my 5 Things newsletter, join at 5thingsdei.com. I'm Bernadette Smith, and I'll see you next week right here for 5 Things in 15 Minutes, bringing good vibes to DEI.